G'day, welcome to Media Tech Talk. I'm David Richards.
And I'm Paul Luckett. What happens when one of the world's fastest growing tech companies turns its focus to the media industry? From Microsoft to Dropbox to Monday.com, Dean Swan has helped shape the systems that power creativity and connection. Today, he leads Monday.com across Asia Pacific and Japan, a Webby Award-winning billion-dollar work operating system now transforming how publishers, agencies, and broadcasters manage ideas from concept to screen.
So here's a question. What happens when media companies are asked to do more with less, delivering new content, products, and projects faster than ever before? And how does AI help Monday.com deliver those efficiencies without losing the creative spark? Okay, let's find out. Welcome, Dean. How are you?
I'm good, thanks, David.
Great to see you, and thanks for joining us on the show.
Yeah.
Now, Dean, for people who don't know you, do you want to tell us a little bit about your journey and what led you to Monday.com?
Sure. So I lead Monday.com in Asia Pacific and Japan. I've been with the company just a little over 5 years. So in fact, set up Monday.com here in Asia as the first employee, and we've grown and scaled it over the last 5 years. Before that, I've spent about 20 years in the technology industry, and actually started my journey just after university when I graduated with a computer science degree right in the middle of the dot-com bust. So it was a bit challenging trying to find work, and ended up landing a role in sales with a small CRM company. Spent about 11 years at Microsoft and in numerous roles there, and leading our channel business. I'd worked in the marketing teams, I'd worked in sales teams, ended up becoming a startup CTO, and spent a couple of years building products and technology and scaling that. And then a couple of years at Dropbox, which finally led me here to Monday.com to build the next leading SaaS company in Asia, which has been very exciting.
Dropbox is a really big shift to Monday.com. How do you, I suppose, find the comparisons there, or the shift into something like Monday.com? What was the idea there?
Yeah, so it is and it isn't. I think it had a number of similarities from my perspective. They were both co-founder-led companies. The co-founders of those companies were product people, so they had a unique culture. I find that product-led companies, the culture is typically focused on crafting and creating a beautiful product. It's
I love
focused
that.
on customer centricity. So
Yeah.
all these things really resonated for me when the headhunter rang me up and was trying to entice me to come to Monday. That being said, at the time, 5 years ago, I actually wasn't familiar with Monday.com. So when the recruiter asked me whether or not I wanted to have a chat to Monday.com, I was like, I don't know who these guys are. And he said, well, you might know them as Dapulse, which was the company's original name. Very confusing, spelled Dapulse, Dapulse.
Yeah.
But I actually knew Dapulse because I used Dapulse in my startup. So when I was formulating our product roadmaps and all of our work breakdown structures, I was using the first incarnation of Monday.com. So that intrigued me to have that conversation.
Where does the name Monday.com from? I want to draw an assumption, but I'm going to let you answer that one.
So there actually is an Aussie connection to that. So there was a gentleman by the name of Joel Goldstein from Bondi
Right.
who came up with the name Monday.com. And we were being encouraged by, I think, our investors at the time to say, hey, you need to find something a little bit more memorable, because Depulse, first of all, very hard to spell. And then when you think about what does that look like in terms of your search engine optimization and all that stuff, is probably not the best name. And we settled on Monday.com, which was something that's very memorable and ties very closely to our category that we operate in, which is work management.
Yeah, like it. You're familiar with the work management and applications in this space. Dare I say, Jira and Atlassian are part of the product suite that you've used in project management?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I've used Geez, the number of different work management solutions I've tried to build out over the years, I can't even remember them all now. I've definitely used Jira, Monday. I mean, the good old spreadsheet goes a long way still.
Yeah.
But I think for me, the interesting thing was always, trying to, whether it's building out, project management, work management, technical support systems, product roadmaps, whatever it was. The key thing that it always came back to was just, the Achilles heel of any good solution there in work management seems to be people's ability to keep the information updated and keep things, up to date. So how has the business addressed that in their approach to Monday.com? And I guess how would you recommend people kind of build out their solutions to cater for usability and ease of use?
That's a great question because I think that goes to the heart of what we're set out to build, right? As I said, product-led companies are really focused on that craft and they want to build beautiful products. And that's at the heart of what we set out to do at Monday. We want to build a platform that people love to use. And I think if you see some of our out-of-home advertising, some of our brand advertising, there's an emphasis on that product that people love to use. The other component of it is our focus on how do you democratize software. So how do you put software into the hands of people that anyone, whether they technical or non-technical, can build the work applications that they need, right? And everyone's workflows are uniquely different. And so when we looked at what we were trying to solve for, that traditional software was quite rigid and you had to adapt your way of working to fit into that software. And so we approached it from a completely different perspective, which is, well, how do you build something that is really flexible and that can be shaped to the way that people are working? So that's really Monday's uniqueness, is building something that is pleasurable to work with, but is also something that adapts to the way people work. I think the other side of it is a philosophy of being a work operating system, which is recognizing that there are multiple tools and platforms in every business's environment. So it's not about trying to compete with them, but how do you connect with them? And so that's another part of our philosophy, is that we're really focused on how do you bring people together, because I think cross-functional alignment is a big issue for many businesses, right? So how do you stitch all these tools together in a really seamless way that people can work in a seamless fashion and work can just flow?
Yeah, look, I'm using Monday at work and have found the transition from the product that we were using into this one so much better. I'm not going to speak out of term on that, because obviously we're using both still, but the product adoption into Monday from what I do now, it has been so much simpler. I don't want to oversimplify it, but it's almost a gamification concept where the visual element of the platform is so customizable that it suits people like myself who are, just at a glance looking for key colors to identify project tasks or events that need to be monitored or managed. I think, if we want to call it, Microsoft PowerPoint on steroids, it sort of feels that way for anybody that hasn't had a chance to look at it. And going down the customizable part is amazing. And I've really loved what the Monday client support team have been doing in this space to support our product adoption, and in the way that we've not just built automation workflows for our own internal team use, but also connecting other business units with automation. And that is amazing. So now we can literally assign a task to a person, and that goes out as you'd expect to that workspace or the board for that other business unit. And we can sit down and have regular meetings, and everybody knows what we're doing, and they can update that when they make that update in their work board for our task updates on ours as well. And I think you've released some new updates as well around the automation and workflow space too.
Yes. I just want to touch on a previous point that you mentioned there, David, because I think that's the common reality that faces many people in the workplace today. And it's across all sizes of companies and across all industries. So I'm never surprised when I walk into a large organization and I see that they still coordinating significant components of their work, very strategic work on spreadsheets, and still, the communication platform is mainly email going back and forth, and there's thousands of emails that they drowning in. And then when it comes to updating one another, they're creating PowerPoint presentations. So that's what we see happening very frequently, is that coordination, communication, and content is living on platforms that are probably 20 plus years old, right?
Yeah, that's also, I
And
think,
yeah,
important too. When people leave the organization, that information generally disappears due to
yeah,
privacy concerns for people's own personal, well, not personal, but corporate email accounts, etc. Usually sit in the sterile environment and are held for a period. So a lot of that information becomes lost, if you like. But having all of that information stored from an email that's being sent, captured by Monday in that particular task, and go back and have a look at it at a later point, that's been super, super helpful. Yeah.
you're more connected, there's more transparency, and I think, ultimately what we're also trying to enable individuals and teams to do is just move faster, right? You mentioned our update. So really, at a headline, Monday is famous for being a work management platform. And with the entrance of AI, what we see and what we are working on is the shift from Monday being a work management platform to Monday being a work execution platform.
Right. Well,
And
explain that. Yeah.
yeah, so how do we bring AI to bear in a way that it can do um, the work for you, and ideally the tedious parts of what we need to deal with on a day-to-day basis, and that's where we're focused in terms of, okay, well, how do we build an AI assistant into Monday that has the context of all the things that you're trying to do. It has the context of the people that you're collaborating with. It has the context of when things need to be delivered. It has the context of dependencies. It has the context of all the risks that you might not be aware of, and how does it surface it to you in a contextual way. And then, as I said before, how can it do some of the work for you? A simple example would be, if I'm an event planner and I want to um, host an event in 2 weeks' time, and I need to go find suitable venues that are available on that date for 100 people. Using Monday Sidekick, it has the context of what you're trying to do. I can just type in a natural language prompt and say, can you go find me suitable venues in Sydney that are available for my venue? And it will go through and start populating your board with all of the venues that fit that criteria and so on.
That's that's next level amazing. I didn't know that. Gonna try that out.
Yes.
And I love the way it integrates seamlessly with operating systems that it runs on, and the applications that it just through copy and paste of Excel spreadsheets, as an example, for each of those tasks that you might have captured in a meeting or somebody might have had, just do a copy and paste of those cells, and it basically pastes them into separate cells in Monday to create those tasks. The simplicity of it is amazing. So yeah, it's nice.
And just on that point, David, I think that's another innovative use that we have now with AI, where many teams in the space would be familiar with brief intakes, right? And you'd be accepting briefs through emails, maybe PDFs, or maybe spreadsheets, and you're having to sit there and rekey it into something, whether that be a spreadsheet or whatnot. And ideally, you're using Monday. With Monday AI, we can ingest those brief intakes and automatically populate your boards, right? So this is again, a simple way where we taking the load off some of the tedious work that's not really bringing out or utilizing your best talents and your best skills and your experience, but it's sort of low-level tasks that AI can take over for you.
Yeah, interesting. It's probably a good segue actually into the media space. How are you finding the adoption of Monday into the media area? What are they mainly using it for? And when I say what are they using it for, what business units are you finding using it the most, and how?
Yeah, so with media being such a broad industry, we're working with organizations that are creating content, whether it be HBO and the shows that they're creating, and they'll be using Monday for the planning, the management, and the execution of that. We work with Universal Media Group, and again, a lot on that so content coordination, content planning side. We've got podcasts, for instance, like the Diary of the CEO with Steve Bartlett, who talks a lot about how he uses Monday personally around their planning and their execution.
Which is
So
I love that
a lot of
podcast too,
that,
by the way.
yes,
It's a good one. Yeah.
it's a good plug for us.
Yes.
So that content creation and the process of that in terms of the planning of it, the execution of it, and going through everything that you need to do to deliver that online. Then when we think about the promotion of the content, so we work a lot with marketing teams in the media space who are normally working on different campaigns and different platforms that they want to promote that to. So Monday is used quite significantly in that space. And then also just day-to-day operations. So we see many organizations where historically they might have been using spreadsheets to manage their core workflows. They'll be using Monday in that scenario as well.
Yeah, fascinating. It just seems to be in a world now where I can't imagine going back to the old Excel spreadsheet to manage and share or distribute products or just product tasks. It's what like you've been there obviously for a while. What's the business like internally from a research and development point of view? Are they constantly listening to what people are asking for, and what's the process there, and how quickly can you turn things around based on popularity?
So we have such a broad customer base, right? So we have over 250,000 organizations globally that use Monday. We service all sorts of industries, or we have over 200 industries. And then more specifically, within organizations, such a broad and breadth of teams that utilize Monday. So we've got sales teams, marketing teams, project teams, content teams, financial teams, HR teams, you name it, that use Monday. So the surface area that we cover is really significant. And then in addition to that, we don't have one product. We have Monday Work Management, we've got Monday CRM, Monday Service, Monday Dev, and then all the capability that we're bringing out from AI. So that presents a couple of interesting challenges that we solve for, or opportunities, because it's, well, how do you service the breadth of that market and then at the same time create a compelling platform that is solving real problems at an individual level right through to an organizational level, right? So we've got a couple of philosophies that are a really core part of our culture. One is around speed and execution, right? And I'll share an anecdote. When I arrived at Monday, people told me, I said, "Hey, we execute really quickly." I was like, "Yeah, sure." Every tech company says that. Um, and the way that it showed up for me, I remember when I was at Dropbox, one of the things that we were trying to solve for was how do we ensure that people in Australia have a speedy experience with their content? And one of the things that we had to do was we had to create a point of presence infrastructure in Australia that allowed the 10 million people that were Dropbox users in Australia to have a really a fast experience with that. That took about 2 years of work at Dropbox. So when
Wow.
I started at Monday, in the first week or two, when I heard some people saying, "Hey, we need we have a bit of a lag in the experience," I was like, "Okay, I need to get onto this quickly because I know it's going to take 2 weeks to get it done."
Yeah.
And I reached out to our head of infrastructure, David Furster, and I said, "Hey, David, I had this challenge at Dropbox. We solved it. And in an effort for me to get him onto it really quickly, I said, here's the white paper that showed you exactly how we do it." And I sent it on to him. And then a week later, he goes, "Yeah, it's done." And I was like, "Okay, great. So you've read the white paper." And he goes, "No, we set up the point of presence infrastructure." So that just blew my mind, because that was what took me 2 years at Dropbox, took us 1 week at Monday. And that really encapsulates that speed and execution, right? The platform itself is also by design something that allows us to innovate on incredibly quickly, right? Another soundbite on that is if I have a look at Monday CRM. In a very short space of time, we've built Monday CRM to be a leader now in CRM. It's um, significant in terms of the revenue we've been able to drive in a very short space of time. So, our CRM product is $100 million product today, which is unheard of, right?
Mm.
But that's a product that we built in 6 months.
Wow.
And the reason why we could do that is because of the way the Monday platform is architected, right? Monday DB and all of the components that we've built into it allows us to bring innovation to the market at a lightning pace.
Yeah. No,
And
that's
then the other part of it is culturally, I'll just sort of say also ownership and impact is really important for us. So how do we, by comparison, relative to our natural competitors, we're a much smaller, leaner organization, but we believe in this philosophy of ownership and impact. And how do people really own things and deliver things and really have that entrepreneurial spirit within every single person to get on with it? And I love the story that you shared with your experience that you had with our customer success team. But I think that embodies that ownership and impact. I really uh, take it by both hands and get involved, and they want to do things and have impact.
Yeah, look, I think that's a really key point because obviously Paul and I are working with a number of big tech companies that it's hard for big tech companies to remain agile. There is a lot of processes and approvals. There's a lot of opportunity for litigation, and so they're very cautious around doing too much. If they cannot do it, then there's more of a lean into not doing it to protect themselves. But
Is that big A or little A agile?
yeah, that's oops. Well, look, I think it's become more of a workspace, right? And it's a good segue because the agile workspace, and I'm going to put my hand up here because I first came into it around the COVID period, and where working in traditional workspaces like it, you're the same. We've been used to a sort of a waterfall cascading event where top management will make the decision and then it'll basically be told to leaders in the departments, and then it'll come down to those teams in those departments executing on that format. Paul, you've seen the same, and when you have that, what's your view on that? Have you found that as a challenge? Now that you're obviously doing your own consulting business, you can control all of that too.
Yeah, I think I've watched a lot of, there's a reason why there are people that kind of out there in the world, management consulting that is specifically for agile transformation within businesses, right? Because it is such a challenge for businesses to change from one methodology to the other, project management methodology to the other. And the other thing, I've seen this transition and transformation happen, and I'd say in maybe it's just because it is, the waterfall solution is one that's been around for a lot longer. But I say that Agile, for me in my experience, has been one that when it gets up and running and it runs smoothly, it is a lot quicker and a lot more effective. But it's getting to that point of smoothness and doing it effectively that is kind of the challenge for most businesses. It requires a little bit of investment to get there first. And I think having platforms that are designed around that, ease of use and enabling that for customers, I think is definitely a huge benefit. So, I know I've worked with the Monday platform quite a lot, and it's, something that I found pretty easy to use. So that's been my experience, I guess. I tell you, it's funny, we can we make fun of the old spreadsheet every now and then, but I imagine the use of spreadsheets is sacrilegious at Monday.com.
Yes.
It's kind of like people in advertising using ad blockers.
Yeah.
For me, it was always the spreadsheet is, and whether it's for Agile or for whatever methodology you're using, I always ended up back on a spreadsheet, always, because for me it was just I could achieve the thing I wanted to achieve. I could achieve the exact thing I wanted to achieve in the spreadsheet. It just took a long time for me to get there,
Yeah.
and a lot of writing formulas or writing a custom script in the background. So it was a lot of heavy lifting on my part to get there. And I've got pretty funny stories around building spreadsheets that I literally bottlenecked Google Sheets once, resource limited Google Sheets to the point where the spreadsheet froze because of certain things that I was doing. But Then the problem there is that once, if I leave the business or if I leave the team or hand that off to someone else, then they have no idea
Yeah.
how to manage any of that. So I'm sure, David, you've probably got spreadsheets of mine
Yeah.
floating around that no one knows how to maintain anymore.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. And I think there is also a point where, and just to touch on that, is that we're to try and communicate at scale, and where everything is moving so fast right now, and it's not going to change. It's going to get faster as we see AI, and then we get quantum as a hardware technology to power AI as an operating system. It's just, anything to do with modeling, as we know, it's just going to go out the window. And I think to keep everybody in the loop is going to be really hard, and we need technology solutions that help us communicate. And I think the Agile is, and for those who aren't familiar with the Agile workspace, it's basically working in scrums. And correct me, Dean, if I've got this wrong, that's my way of thinking of it, where we have a scrum master that will be assigned to a particular group of people, and you have, maybe a quarterly meet with all of the scrum masters and the business leadership to understand what the strategies are. Those scrum masters will then come in and you'll pull together key resources from business units around the org, and you'll work on a project. Now, the way that I've seen this and participated in it was that the scrums themselves were intelligent by the people that were part of it, but we're also able to use bite-sized chunks to deliver project elements. And at the end of the sprint, if you like, we all came together, and I get goosebumps thinking about this. Magically, somehow, we're working on one part of a car, and then you've got another scrum working on another part, and whilst the scrum masters are meeting and communicating, we all have the same delivery deadline, and we all come together, and the parts all come together. If I sort of described that correctly, I'm hoping it sort of makes sense. But it's synchronicity and the magic of that, and Monday does this really well in providing the communication tool to disseminate that information really fast as well, and keep everybody in the loop on what's going on.
So there's a couple of threads on that, right?
Yeah.
So what I will add is it's also bringing together multidisciplinary teams, right? So when you think about that Scrum unit, right, it might have a dev, it might have a product manager, it might have a marketing person, you might have a legal person. Yeah, in traditional ways of working, teams that would be siloed and be working on different parts of this, and that have their view, versus where you're bringing teams together around a value or something that you're trying to produce, and working in that agile way, and then having a backlog of all the things that you want to be able to do, and the teams being able to work at pace in sprints. And the sprint concept's really important as well, because it allows you to make sure that you're getting that feedback loop, right? Because the difference between the waterfall method and the agile method is waterfall, it's very sequential, and then if you need to change something when you've got to the end of the process and you've built the house and you realize, oh well, the foundation was in the wrong place, it's very hard to go back, right? Yeah. Whereas the agile method is iterative, so that means that at that time you can check and make sure, oh well, we actually need to make a change now before we've built everything out, and sort of you have that feedback loop, which is really powerful. But I will say there's a couple of things. Is what I've observed is that agiles typically come from the tech world, right? And now we've seen agile ways of working being applied to marketing teams and finance teams and all different sorts of teams. But then we've also tried to take technical tooling and enforce that on those teams. And so I've seen it sort of fracture a little bit, and that's probably why Paul, you would see people go and revert back to a spreadsheet because they're working with something that they're familiar with, right? So I think that's something that we see happen quite often. The other thing is, not everything that we do in an organization, we should be using agile methodology for that. It's not the appropriate methodology. So again, I mean, if you are building something, let's say you're a large retail organization and you need to refit your distribution centers to make them ready or more appropriate for e-commerce, that's that's a construction project. And so a construction project is a waterfall project. So what have I observed in many organizations when they're thinking about their strategy and then they break down their strategy into a number of initiatives, you end up with this blend. You've got some things that absolutely you want to drive as an agile initiative, and you've got other things you want to drive as a waterfall type approach, right? So, as a retailer, you might say, well, we need to build out a new compelling web store or web shop front or a last mile delivery app. We're going to run that in agile, but if we need to uh, fit out our stores and do store fit outs and refresh our brand on that,
Mm.
that's a waterfall type project. So we've seen this concept of wagile. So it's
Oh,
waterfall
hang
and
on. What
agile.
was that? I haven't heard this one yet. Just
Agile, wagile.
Wagile. Okay,
Yeah.
so
So
you
waterfall
heard
and
it here.
agile coming together,
Right.
wagile.
Oh, I love
Uh,
it when we come up with new
yeah.
terms. I'm just
Yeah.
for me that's a new one, but I'm sure others have heard it. Maybe it's great.
Yeah, probably a lot of people might resonate with that. They go,
Yeah,
"Oh yeah, well,
it
agile
works.
hasn't worked for us in
Yeah,
our organization." And I'm like, "Well, that's because you're trying to, you're looking at everything and you're trying to hit it with the agile hammer, and it's
yeah,
probably not appropriate for that, right?"
no,
So,
Mm.
and I see many organizations in that space.
yeah,
They're trying to go all in on it versus having a more pragmatic approach and go, "Well, we actually need a balanced approach for it."
yeah. You're absolutely right.
Mm.
I think communication. I touched on the COVID scenario where, as we all know, we all were literally sent home from the workplace for 2 years with variables in how many days in the office we could have. Communication was a really big part on everybody making sure that the world, the globe, kept moving. And for me personally, these project management tools or communication tools, if you like, were so important on making sure that at scale we had a way of communicating and tracking. And I really see. Did you see a big take up during COVID for what you guys are doing in this workspace?
Yeah, so here's the backstory. So I started Monday in the region March 2020, which was right in the middle of COVID. So our
Awesome.
first international office was our office in New York, and our
Mm,
second international office was my lounge room in Sydney.
right.
And so for the first like year or 2 years, super challenging in the sense that you're trying to build this brand and this business working out of your lounge room. And
Mm,
the original plan back then was for us to have, I think, a team of five in 2020 and a team of seven by 2021. And we ended up 2021 being 70, so 70,
wow,
right?
that's amazing.
So yeah, COVID absolutely was a tailwind for our business in one sense. It was a bit of a headwind in another sense where yeah, existing customers were under pressure and they had to navigate that and might not have been growing as fast. But if you come back to collaboration and you break it down into its constituent parts, collaboration is a combination of coordination, communication, and then normally have some content in there, right? So maybe you're creating content or you're trying to collaborate and there's a piece of content. And what we found with Monday, it really changed the paradigm in that perspective because what people needed when they were working from home is there was a higher degree of need around visibility. So when you think about when you're trying to collaborate and coordinate in an office, a lot of that happens quite naturally. And I know there are a lot of companies when I was zooming into their offices and you had the one person that was working from the office that had all these sticky notes on the whiteboard,
I think that
which
was
was
me.
yeah, which is their
Yeah,
Kanban, right? So they
it
were
is
like, oh yeah,
Kanban. You're right.
and we're like, okay, so you're going to take all those sticky notes and ship them
Mm,
home, or how's it going to work? So the coordination part of that became digital.
mm,
And we saw the rise of these really visual platforms that allowed you to take your real world sticky note and
mm,
put that into a digital form. Again, on the communication side, having that transparency because we saw teams were having a lot more Zoom meetings as a result of working from home. And then we had the Zoom fatigue settling in which again for us was a tailwind because people were saying, I don't need a whole lot of these meetings just to understand where things are up to. And then that's where Monday they could just go to Monday board and they could see exactly what that looked like.
I don't know why, but
It was,
video killed the radio star just came into my head. I think is it Monday killed the 3M post-it note. I still use them. I love them. As I said, I'm very tactile, very visual. So-
Well, yeah, I was gonna say, like, do you think there's more, like, in the future? I don't know how far in the future we want to look here around, like, the sort of confluence between the, digital and the, I guess, like, kind of like augmented reality style things of like digital whiteboards and things like that. Because for me, I always come back to, similar thing. Like, I still write in notebooks. Like, I've got even going to the gym. Like, I keep a journal for a written journal.
Yeah,
Like,
so
I
there
still
you go, just
like.
a brief.
Yeah, I like having that visual kind of actually like physical look at things.
yeah.
Even like in my consulting business, if I'm auditing a website, for monetization, like I like to print out, a copy of the full page so that I can go through and write notes around the page. Like there has to be some psychological thing there, but do you think that's something that we'll get to?
I think there will always be a blend. I mean,
Mm,
it's interesting you talk about printing out things. That's very much my experience in Japan because I've got an office in Tokyo. So we think about the fact that we have to set up our website in a way that someone can print it out because
mm.
that's the thing that you do in Japan is people will print out your website and
Ah.
then they want to read it in that way. I don't think we're going to
Is that where we're
change
going?
thousands of years of culture, right? So, um,
I'm this hybrid guy. I just want to put it out
yeah, yeah.
there.
And look, I think there's some scenarios where absolutely you want to be tactile and you don't want to sort of
Mm,
have this friction where you, oh, well, I need to be in a digital platform where I really actually want to be in a physical platform. I'll give you an example. So last week we had our leadership offsite and setting our strategy and our vision. And as you do, you have these butcher's papers around the room and you're writing on things. And we want to do that because you can stand around it, you can have a conversation, you can have a dialogue, and you can scratch pad ideas and add to that. But you do want to bring it into the digital realm when you want to execute that and you want to get that off the
Mm,
page. And what I loved about what we were able to do there was I just went around the room and I took photos of that, of the butcher's papers. And then I sent that into Monday and I said, just transcribe that and create that as items on a board.
wow.
And so within 5 minutes, I had all of the ideas that we had around all the butcher's papers in our Monday board. And actually today we're having the follow-up meeting where we're going to go through the board and actually vote on all the ideas. So that's a good sort of blend of physical
mm,
and what was an appropriate format for that conversation into digital, but then
Mm.
also allowing us to execute on that and not lose that because we're not going to all walk around with butcher's paper as our execution plan.
I need a big pocket. So, then where are we seeing Monday go in the future? What's your vision? And I'm happy for you to speak hypothetical if it's not in the roadmap already. What would you like to see?
Yeah, look, I mentioned before we're shifting from being a work management platform to a work execution
Mm,
platform, and if you look at what software does for us today and we what we expect of software is going to change fundamentally, right? So for many teams, we our software is the place that we're managing the work. So whether it's Monday and you've got all of your projects and your work breakdown structures in that, or whether it's your ERP system and that's where you're managing all of your finances, or it's your CRM and that's where you're managing your pipeline and your opportunities and your customer campaigns, uh, 80% of the work takes place outside of those platforms, right? Now, what's happening is that the software is going to start executing the work for you. And we're seeing that already. So, where we see Monday has that capability to start executing those tasks for you,
mm,
or the Monday CRM starts executing the components of the person's role that that they don't really want to be doing. They find tedious, updating things
mm,
and so on. So um, that's where it's going. I think Yeah, I talk a lot about this when I meet with different teams, and our own team is why I'm optimistic about that is if you have a look at modern work fundamentally isn't working. The reason why I say that is you've got this paradox. On the one side, you've got burnout that's on the rise. In fact, some of the statistics I saw the other day in Australia, 61% of Australians experience burnout
Wow.
uh, in one way, shape, or form. And it's a significant impact, not only at an individual level, but at an organizational level as well, because 40% of resignations are due to burnout, right? And then on the other side, productivity is declining, right? So in Australia, since 2016, productivity is flatlined, and then since 2022, it's actually been declining at, I think, 1.2% a year. So you got this paradox of burnout on the rise and productivity declining. And I think AI has an ability, certainly the way that we're implementing and the way that we're using it and the way that we see its impact, is how can we take people from burnout to flow? Right. And if you think about your role, my role, it's really a bundle of tasks. It's a bundle of to-dos, right? And if we look at it through that lens, and then we go, well, what are all the things that I need to do on a day-to-day basis? There's going to be a whole lot of things that I would say are the daily grind and the things that really contribute to burnout and the things that don't make the best use of my talents and my skills and my experience. And then there's going to be a whole lot of higher order things that tap into, for this industry, my creativity and tap into the things that I really find enjoyment and fulfillment out of work. And then, okay, how can software take the stuff that is the tedious work, the grind, and do that for me and free up more capacity for me to do the things that really leverage my talents, my skills, my experience, and give me a lot of fulfillment. So that's the glass half full view of AI, and that's the thing that Monday's working on, and a lot of the capability that's here today. Like I said, if I'm doing brief intakes, manually transcribing a brief intake into a Monday board is not making a good use of my time, and I probably find that tedious if I was doing that for a couple of hours every single week. All right, just let AI take care of that.
That was Dean Swan. What a great conversation, Paul. I was really inspired by a lot of the technology solutions that he's been able to bring into the media space around project planning. What do you think?
Yeah, it was a good chat. It was good to speak to someone in that space. I was very curious to learn more about this term that I hadn't heard of before today, of work operating system.
Yeah,
I
same.
think yeah, I like the way that he explained it. Of, rather than you see a lot of these work management platforms who are kind of like a walled garden of products and services, and what they're kind of focused on is really providing that space for the work management, but also focusing a lot on connecting to other ecosystems as well and building out that ecosystem. And of course, I love a good chat about a good spreadsheet.
Yeah, I'm all into the automation, and as we discussed around working smarter and harder with fewer people, having these resources available to us at scale now that simplify that space, and to hear how he scaled up during COVID was really impressive as well. And what a massive remit, all the way from Asia Pacific to Japan. I just, and he's such a lovely guy. I'm a bit of a fanboy on this one. Yeah, but I was really impressed. And I want to see actually where the business is going, but I like to see where it's going now.
Yeah, absolutely. I realized halfway through when he was talking about the offices opening up in the US that I remember seeing their office in Denver when I was there earlier this year and walking down the street in Denver and seeing this big building with Monday.com sign on it. I was like, oh, that's super interesting.
Yeah. And it's come from Bondi. Who would have thought?
Yeah.
So glad they didn't call it Friday.
Yeah.
That would have been the
I
end
was,
of the week. The week's done. I think the concept of having Monday at the start of the week, and you're obviously planning and getting everything ready for the week ahead. That was where my brain went when I heard about the name when I first heard
yeah, it
it.
makes sense, right?
Yeah, it does.
Yeah, and I think it's good to see. I mean, as I said during the episode, like over the years, especially my role at News Corp, taking on, running not just ad tech, but then taking on the kind of roadmap management for the wider commercial operations group. A lot of my time was spent building out solutions for the roadmap or for work management, tech support, all that kind of stuff. And I've used multiple different solutions, and I think the reason why a lot of people and we touched on this a little bit, and people always go back to spreadsheets, is because it's familiar, but it's also there's hacky ways of getting any solution to work, but it's just about how much time and effort really has to go into that and the ongoing management of it. And platforms like Monday are really kind of putting the ease and the efficiency into that and doing the heavy lifting for you, and while still maintaining a high level of flexibility, which is cool. So I know you've used the platform a lot. How do you feel kind of using it these days?
Yeah, look, I'm obviously a very visual person, very tactile. Having the ability to have the choice is very important. I don't think we will ever see the end of using pen and paper as an example, but definitely having the choice and being able to automate tasks between different business units. I definitely like the idea that Monday doesn't have a philosophy where they're trying to replace the waterfall business concept. It's, I'm just trying to remember what he said. It was, what is it, Agile and waterfall? Was it wagile? I haven't heard that.
Yeah.
Where did that come from? Trying to explain that in the office.
Yeah. I was thinking of so many different alterations to that when he said that.
Yeah, it's amazing.
Yeah, I think it's like I would describe, when we were talking about that, like I would just, if you want to simplify waterfall and agile, like agile to me is like parallel processing combined with decentralized and iterative decision making versus waterfall, which is a purely sequential and dependency based system. And he's right with wagile that there is versions of those out there where you're taking kind of the best of both almost, and it is largely still ran in an agile model, but it's an agile model that is built in with sequential processing and dependency in it, shorter iterations and things like that. So yeah, it's interesting. It was a good conversation, and I hope everyone enjoyed it and got as much out of it as we did. We hope you will enjoy us next time join us next time on Media Tech Talk.
I'm Maddie Basso, head of Yahoo DSP Australia.
And I'm Elliot Thompson, head of product solutions at Yahoo.
Join us next on Media Tech Talk as we explore how Yahoo is re-engineering media and advertising for an AI-led future, where intelligence, transparency, and control matter more than ever.
We'll unpack how platforms evolve, how leadership adapts, and what happens when artificial intelligence moves from promise to practice.
So here's the question. What does leadership look like when the rules of media, identity, and automation are being written in real time? And how does the OG of the internet continue to remain at the forefront when so many others have come and gone in that time?
Join us for the conversation that's inspiring media minds.
That's next on Media Tech Talk.